There's a saying out there, your network is your net worth. The people that you hang out with, that's where you're going to get to know who to work with, what deals to go into, where to invest. It is a big networking thing. But I would say until your net worth becomes at least $250,000, I think you're all on your own, buddy. You just got to grind and save along the way.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Today we have a special guest all the way from the other side of the world, Mr. Lane Kawaoka. He is the founder of the website simplepassivecashflow.com. We're going to have that in the show notes. He is an accredited investor and podcaster and an official member of the Forbes Real Estate Council. He's also a writer in Forbes, invests in a lot, has over 3,500 rental units, which is amazing, and the author of the book, The One That Changed Everything. It is a 12-time Amazon best-selling author, so you better go and check that out. Lane, thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sean. Appreciate it.
No, we are so excited to work to learn from you. So actually, it is me who should be thanking you for being here on the show. So you are a licensed professional engineer, and you were doing that from early on in your life after you graduated to one day throwing in the towel and saying, hey, I would rather focus on passive income because I think that makes more sense for me. But what was the turning point? Because a lot of people, I think everyone wants passive income. That's why, there are scams out there and it's easy for them to get people because the desire to have passive income is so strong. And yet a lot of people just don't throw in the towel and jump ship like you did. So I want to know, what was that turning point that made you decide, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to focus on this and run with it.
Everybody wants passive income, right? But I just got lucky that I picked the right one. People will sell all kinds of things, essential oils, different multi-level marketing products, and they say that's passive income. That's not passive income to me. To me, it's, I got the taste of it when I bought that first rental property and started renting it out. The monthly rents was $2,200 a month, and the mortgage payments was $1,600 a month. So if you can do the math at home, that's a few $100 at the very least to pay some expenses. That's cash flow, right? Every month. That was where I realized, if I just keep buying more and more of these things, first buy more and more of them, and it takes a while, but then eventually quit the day job.
So how many more did you buy before you finally exploded and had 3,500 rental properties?
Can I get one thing straight? I'm not like a wholesaler or flipper. I buy and hold properties. I put down the 20% down payment, and I could do that because I had a good paying day job where I was able to be frugal with my money and save it to put on down payment. I was lucky enough to be able to save at least 50 grand a year to buy investments. So, but even at that pace, it took me about 7 years to get up to 11 rental properties. Because the first 3 years, I bought one and I had to wait a couple years to buy the next one. It's not a get rich quick thing, that's for sure.
I'm sure, and you do a lot of homework before you buy a certain property. What are some of the key things that you look at in order for you to decide, once you put in the down payment, that's pretty much it, right? Because that's, the deal's done, your money's there, and you have to pay mortgage. So what are some of the key things that you look at before you finally decide, this property is going to be good passive income for me?
Yeah, I didn't know a lot of this stuff when I first began, but the biggest one is the rent to value ratio. We don't buy anything today that's under 1% rent to value ratio. So you figure this out by taking the monthly rent price, dividing it by the purchase price. So for example, $100,000 property that rents for $1,000 a month, that's 1,000 divided by 100 grand is 1%. So a lot of places like California, you might find a $400,000 property that rents for 2,000. It's 2,000 divided by 400,000. That's 0.5%. That ain't gonna work for cash flow. We kind of find properties that where the numbers work out that way. And of course, we try not to go into bad areas. We try and stay with good, stable tenants, good areas. But we get the numbers where it works.
So anything above 1% is okay for you already.
Yeah, it's a good starting point, right? And then you kind of start digging in, you start to inspect the property, but numbers first, right? Because numbers you can verify from several thousand miles away from your computer. Then you have to put the deal with your contract and do your physical inspections. You get a third party to do that. And then you start to sharpen your pencil on how the numbers are going to work. But yeah, anybody can go on Zillow, look at some properties in their area, and figure out what rental comps are going for, and figure that.
So I'm wondering now how you manage 3,500 plus properties, because you need to collect from your tenants. You need to make sure that you're able to address some of their concerns. That's a lot of tenants that you need to handle. How do you do it?
Well, I don't do anything, man. I mean, I just have property managers to do it, just like from the beginning. A property manager is somebody who you pay, usually pay them 10% of the rents, and they property manage. They manage the tenants. They manage the day-to-day, the issues that happens at night. I don't really deal with any tenants, termites, or toilets, as they say. Today, we're kind of running more of a sophisticated model where we buy them in large apartments. We have more sophisticated commercial property managers, and we have another layer of staff in between there, who direct the property managers around. You got to be an investor, not a landlord, right? You got to pay people good money to do this work for you. That way, you're able to scale. Most investors only have 1 or 2 properties. To me, that's not the way to do this business.
So you have property managers. I assume you have different property managers per different locations. That's still quite a handful. I want to know the word accredited investor. We don't have that in our country. We just have investors, or either you invest or you don't. And usually they don't teach you anything here about investing as well. They don't teach you how to handle your money. Personal finance management is something you learn from workshops and seminars here. So what does that mean? I just want to know, how do you become an accredited investor, and why would someone want to be accredited?
Well, an accredited investor is, there's no test to take. There's not really too much of a qualification process. It's kind of like, are you pregnant or not? And there's no test for it. Either you are or you aren't. In America, we have a lot of, obviously you guys know, we're the land of regulation, right? Where the government likes to get involved and make all these rules. In America, to protect, smaller investors from investing all their money, they might even only have a few $1,000 to invest all of it and blow their life savings. They set up these rules where if you're not an accredited investor, you're very restricted in what you can invest with. So defining an accredited investor is an investor who makes more than $250,000 a year or has a net worth greater than or equal to $1 million, not including what's in their primary residence. They're doing pretty well. Right, and they could stand to lose, some money here and there and be okay. Where our government has, maybe made the judgment where somebody who's not accredited should likely not be investing in one of these type of deals because you could lose your money. Most accredited investors, sophisticated accredited investors, know how to kind of mitigate it and diversify it appropriately. But for unsophisticated, non-accredited investors, it can be a death sentence. Which is unfortunate because most of the people in my country and everybody else, they just invest in retail type of products like mutual funds and all these kind of, from brokerages, from financial planners, which to me, I don't do any of that stuff because it's just ridden with fees. And yep. I kind of see the world in terms of that's what's robbing all these hardworking Americans of their retirement.
I'm going to stem from that and jump into one of my questions. I saw that you don't advise people to invest in those retirement funds or retirement accounts. You ask people to you think that people should veer away from them. They're advertised, they're marketed, and aside from being ridden with fees, what other reasons do you have to say why people should veer away from them?
Yeah, I'm not saying not to invest for your future. I think retirements have their place because most people are able to save their money. If they had 20 grand in their checking account, they'd probably blow it on some doodad or some car or something like that. I'm not a big fan of buying your own house to live in, right? But for some people who can't save their money, which is most people, again, if they don't put their money into their mortgage, paying down their house, they blow it too. Just some people are. But for those of people who are financially responsible, you're going to pay taxes on the money sooner or later. I personally would rather pay taxes on it sooner for a variety of reasons. Three mainly. First, your taxes is going to be lower now than in the future because I plan on making more money in the future. Therefore, I'm going to be climbing in the higher tax brackets in the future. Secondly, the United States has been pretty much creating all this money. I don't know what you guys have seen from your guys' end. We print it like it's going out of style, right? How else are we going to pay for all these government entitlement programs than to increase the tax brackets in the future? Again, pay your taxes now, right? Get out of it. Some people in my group are a little facetious and they say, by keeping your money in a retirement account, the government essentially has a lien on all your stuff. Can tax it whatever they want. And then lastly, the nice thing about investing in real estate as an asset class is you get all these nice benefits. And when you invest outside in your retirement account, you don't get all those nice sweet benefits. So I want to invest cash so I can get those tax benefits today.
I want to rewind a little bit. And so, just for you guys to know, all of you listeners, Lane is a 34-year-old guy. He's 34 years old and has built his passive income, I dare say his empire, on real estate, which means, it's not too late. It's not too early. You can do it. You just have to invest in what you know. And Lane, you have invested based on your portfolio somewhere in the $60,000. And here in the Philippines, it's like 3 million pesos. It's pretty big for a lot of people. And you invested it in your education. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I mean, my first 6-7 years, I just invested all by myself, where I would just save my money like a little turtle. After a couple years, I would able to buy a house, and I just did it again. Rinse, wash, repeat. 6 years, 7 years went by. I got myself up to 11 rental properties. It was a grind to get there, but until I started to join different masterminds and get educated and had to pay for that, I wasn't able to get into different groups of higher level investors who were doing things very differently. It's no mistake that the wealthy do things differently, yet it's not that earth shattering or anything like that. A lot of this stuff, like I mentioned, we don't do retirement accounts. It's just befuddles most people. But that's what the rich do, and that's the twist on it. So that's just one of many things that a lot of accredited and more affluent investors will do. A series of different strategies. But I wouldn't, I didn't really grow up with money. My parents never owned rental properties. How else would I get access to those type of people and the tactics? And after some point, there's a saying out there, your network is your net worth. The people that you hang out with, that's where you're going to get to know who to work with, what deals to go into, where to invest. It is a big networking thing. But I would say until your net worth becomes at least $250,000, I think you're all on your own, buddy. You just got to grind and save along the way.
Is that the bracket where the government just says, okay, you can become an accredited investor? Or no, it's 1 million, right? You mentioned earlier.
Yeah, but the truth is, you don't need to be an accredited investor to invest in these type of deals. These type of deals are country club deals. You just need to know the person. You can be lucky and just happen to know the right person. Highly unlikely though, right?
Yeah.
If you're a broke guy, you probably have broke friends. Let's be honest. You have to level up your peer network.
Right.
The only way to do that most times is just work on yourself.
Again, rewind back a little bit and ask you. You mentioned the first 6-7 years were a grind. How long have you been doing this?
I bought my first rental property in 2009, so a little over 10 years ago. For the guy listening right now, your goal is to save $1,000, to save $5,000, to save 10, to save 20, so you can finally go and buy that first one rental property, right? So you can save your down payment to go buy that first rental property. Guess what? You got to do that again, and then you got to do it again, and then you got to do it again. But then after a while, maybe you can buy 2 properties a year, right?
So it is a matter of being able to set aside something so that you're able to invest in more properties. And that is the way you did it to build it up all the way to where you are right now.
Right. Some books will say you have to save at least 10% of what you make and put to assets that produce income.
And you agree with the 10%?
Yeah, if you want to kind of do it in 20 years, so you got to do it. You got to put in more. That's what I'm saying. I mean, you got to everything that is not essential, especially when you're starting off, you have to putting to your business.
And I read about your rule of investment. You mentioned net worth earlier. You say a maximum 5% of your net worth. That is your rule of investment. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so for accredited investors, they're typically investing minimums of $50,000 into each investment. So that's where the 5% kind of comes from. But when your net worth is 50 to 100 grand, you can't buy anything with that. So you're gonna have to break that rule in the beginning. But just know that that's something you're kind of going to essentially. But maybe I'm gonna kind of try to redirect the conversation because people will follow guys like Richard Branson. I don't care what Richard Branson or Warren Buffett's doing. They're light years ahead of me. When I look at one step ahead of where I am going to be, right? And for the person listening right now, can you even save $1,000 or 10 or 100 grand, right? That's the goal at hand. Maybe we can talk about like the rules of investing. Like, why do I pick real estate? First of it, it's the only thing, it cash flows. So on a monthly basis, the income pays the expenses. Secondly, it's a hard asset. It's a real asset. All these kids out there are playing around with Bitcoin or some kind of stock. That is a fake asset. It is not real. And thirdly, real estate, you can leverage it. Here in America, we get these nice loans to buy it. I mean, it's almost a no-brainer. Real estate's one of the few things that hit all 3 of those things. People invest in gold. Yes, it's a hard asset, but does not produce income, right? Stocks are not real assets. They could produce income, but most of them are more appreciation. Right? Apple stock is not a real asset.
I'm just curious, do you personally invest in just real estate or do you have other investments such as these things?
I kind of stay in my lane. I mean, I focus on one thing. I know apartment buildings and workforce housing. That is what I stick to. I've done 0.1% in some agriculture stuff, but 99.9% of my stuff is workforce housing, real estate.
A lot of the real estate that's being pushed here, in our country at least, are condominium units. Not really housing lots actually. So
what do they rent for, and what is the purchase price?
Purchase price for maybe a 4-bedroom, 192 square meters in a CBD here, Central Business District, would go for like anywhere 15 to 25 million pesos. That's like 500,000 US. 25 million.
500,000 US. And what would be your rent that somebody would pay you to stay there for a month?
It will be 100,000, 150,000 pesos. It's like 3,000 US. It's like
3,000 divided by 500,000 is 0.6% rent to value ratio. So it's not going to work. Yeah. I mean, you're going to have to go out maybe to the rural area, but then it's going to be harder to find tenants. Maybe it's just not going to work in your guys' country. I know that's what's the nice thing about America. We have some places where it's even twice as good as the 1% rent to value ratio. Some even 3 times as good. Pretty much, I mean, I didn't know too much about the Philippines, but I knew China, Japan, Europe, very, very low rent to value ratios. And I think you guys don't have as good loans too. America is very good. Like we only need to put down 20% down payment, and then we get like 5%, 4%, actually 4% or less today, and it's amortized over 30 years.
Yeah, I don't think we have that here. So it's very different. The game's very different. Usually you don't look at housing lots here. You look at condo units. That's what's being pushed. That's what we have a lot of stock of.